welcome to the Dad Golf Podcast with Tut Sauce and Hambino, brought to you by the Golf Tour Junkie. Make sure that you're following us on Instagram at the Dad Golf Podcast, as well as on X at the Dad Golf Pod, Facebook, the Dad Golf Podcast, our website, dadgolf.club. And if you are watching this on YouTube, welcome to our first episode. Full episode on YouTube. We're glad to have you. But please make sure that you're subscribing. If you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you rate us 5 stars, because that makes Ian play more golf. Speaking of the great Hambino, hey buddy, how are you? Can you believe it's year 2?
I know, buddy. Turning the page. We're on to year 2. Almost hit damn near all our goals in year 1. So pretty pumped about that. And today I closed on my old house, so that's done. Got all this money, which then I'm going to give right back to our new mortgage company. But it's nice to be done, and now you know what that means. I'm back in the golf game, baby. I'm going to start playing golf. You guys had a chance to come back and beat me, but not anymore, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
What's going on with you, big dog?
As we all know, when we first started this podcast and did our first episode, Lisa was about to pop. So it is about little man's first birthday. It's just around the corner here. And literally just walked away from a conversation with my wife in tears. So I am putting, much like Ian puts his wedding and marriage at jeopardy every time he comes on here and plays golf, I am currently putting my marriage on ice to come here and bring you all the content that we promise on a weekly basis.
Real quick, nope, don't go to the next point. You got to tell the listeners, what is the first birthday theme? What are we doing?
Hole in one.
Nice. See, look at this. On brand. This guy never stops. He doesn't sleep without branding. Let's go.
Hey, if you watch the U.S. Ryder Cup team, we need more guys, and I am bringing up the next generation to get that going. Okay? I am being patriotic by doing this. This is not for me. This is for in service of my country. So
patriotic, as he wears a England kit. Okay. Interesting.
Kit. Just a Chelsea kit. It's a Chelsea kit.
It's but team in England. Just throw it out there.
Speaking of which, real quick, before we get on to tonight's episode, I looked at, I went and played Marco Simone on a simulator the week of the Ryder Cup. And to be honest, guys, in the tournament they had us play was all the way back. I know there's things about simulators that aren't perfect and overestimate and also underestimate your score, right? I tend to feel like you end up within 3 or 4 shots of what you would have shot anyway, right? But in that tournament, I played awful. I hit driver like crap, and if I hit it well, I hit it 250 yards. So went through my score today and looked at Brooks Koepka, 5-time major champion, and Scotty Scheffler, number 1 player in the world, what they shot Saturday morning as an alternate shot through 11 holes, and I was level with them. So not tooting my own horn of saying that I played well, because I certainly didn't, but that's how poorly those dudes played that morning. It was shambolic at the best.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes these are things that almost you wish we would have recorded at the time, because you and I did a separate FaceTime the last week, which was Friday after the first day, and I was hot because you knew I was hot about some of these picks by spineless Zach Johnson going into the Ryder Cup. I can't think of a worse captain job in my life than Zach Johnson. I mean, and this isn't a shot at at Europe, right? This isn't a shot. What I'm about to say is not a shot at their players. But when you line them up, there's almost no excuse to lose to Europe when you go 1 through 12 and you look at those players and their players. The only way you could lose is by picking your little friends and doing your little click thing that we always do, and then you get absolutely smoked. It was over by Friday. I mean, there was a little hope there on Sunday, a little hope there on Saturday and the afternoon wave, but you lost this on Friday. Like, there's no mistake about it. And that display from Brooks and Scheffler was disgusting and embarrassing, and I'm glad I didn't wake up for it, because when I rewatched some of the highlights, that was awful.
Yeah, so I don't know what was going on in the locker room. Obviously, there was a lot of reports and a lot of things on Twitter that again, I'm going to give, against my best judgment, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Patrick Cantlay, because I'm guessing what actually happened with that report of like, I won't wear the hat unless I'm paid for it. What I'm guessing was a couple of guys were ribbing him about not wearing the hat, and he was like, well, why do you guys care? It's not like I'm getting paid for it, right? Like, it was probably more of an offhand comment like that, especially with how the other guys came out that morning. But there's an issue in Ryder Cup American golf beyond this team and beyond the setup and beyond. I did some research, which I know is rare here at the Dad Golf Podcast, but over the last 30 years in combined foursomes. So if you look at in foursomes, for whatever confusing reason they use is alternate shot, right? I don't know why they go foursomes four ball, right? But Zinger actually, the only good point he made all week was four balls when four balls are in play, foursomes are when four balls aren't in play. So that's the only way I got my head around it. But in the last 30 years in those sessions, we're 5 and 10 in a foursome format. So 10 out of 15 years, we're behind the 8 ball in alternate shot. And in that time, we've only won in 30 years. So that's 60 sessions, right? We've won 6 of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. And I mean, I know that there's definitely seems to always historically be a bond thing with the Europeans when it comes to the Ryder Cup and a pride thing, but I mean, I don't know what it is, man. Like, say what you want about like pride and all this. At the end of the day, it's golf, right? Like, I'm not I can't imagine John Rahm sitting there on 3T and being like, this one's for Europe. Like, that's just not what he's thinking. So, yeah, I look, there are some crazy shots that happen. Like, it seems like every day there's a chip in on 16 that you just got to tip the cap and be like, that's just luck, right? I mean, it's skill, but it's also kind of luck.
Yeah.
And those things didn't happen for the Americans this week, with the exception of the Cantlay putt, where everyone's ripping their heads, the hats off. That was actually a class.
The hats off, yeah.
Actually, it got taken too far by Joey, but the no hats for Cantlay thing was actually great. Look, at the end of the day, I think really what this boils down to is Europe and their players have more children than the Americans. So by the Dad Golf Pod, maybe that's why they won. More children.
So some listeners chimed in for this. We had a comment that just said there wasn't enough camaraderie among the U.S. team, but we've had that excuse now for 30 years. Steve Savora, who's one of our original listeners, came out and said it's ingrained in an individual mindset, which I think has some validity. And Jeff, who we'll have on in the next couple of weeks, said it's really was the course setup that took away from an American advantage.
Yep.
I think
that's the most truthful so far of all the ones you said. That's the biggest factor so far.
So I do think there is something actually like at a cultural level, because even we're terrible in alternate shot, but we're not great in four ball either. I think a lot of this comes down to, like, even if you look at our junior programs, and this is what we can go into what Ian and I think of an analysis standpoint. And to be honest, there's a lot smarter guys that break shots down, right? Like Francesco Molinari, to Jeff's point, obviously did a fantastic job, and he can talk about that analysis way better than either of us idiots can talk about that, right? But from a kid standpoint, I do remember running junior programs, and even at a junior level, there was a heavy emphasis on kids going out and playing their own ball and making the lowest score that they could play on their own ball. Now, the PGA Junior League is doing a good job of mixing up some like team events, but like even at a high school and college level where there's a team component, it is a combined individual score for your team. It's not like you play team golf. You go out and play as an individual. And if 4 guys play better as individuals than everybody else, then your team wins. It's not like there's a team effort. And then even from a country club basis, like you might be a little bit different because you've worked at some other places than I have. But at traditional country clubs, I remember running men's groups and trying to run anything other than like a best ball or Stableford where guys were playing their own ball and getting the biggest pushback every time that I mentioned something where it was like you couldn't register a score.
Yeah, I was just about to say you can't put the score in. Which is so stupid, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think that's why I like watching Bob Does Sports. For the most part, most of their stuff is, a scramble concept or some sort of, team like 2v1, right, where they're playing the best shot kind of thing. Like, it's just what you don't see in competitive golf. And look, I mean, even live golf, as much as I want to pitch being a team thing, it's just like college. It's your own ball, and then it's just where it stacks within the team. It's not the same. So yeah, I think a lot of this comes back to the course setup and doing their due diligence there. But this is where I come back to Zach. Like, okay, I mean, that shouldn't surprise you that they're gonna, dive into this a little bit. Like, I just felt like we were putting out it just felt like it was just random guys for the most part. Like, we're putting together, with the exception of JT and Spieth. It was just like, I think you guys will work together, and then they get out there and you're like, nope, this will not work. Like, how do we get to this point? Like, do you not do practice rounds? Do you not do anything? I'm so frustrated with Zach Johnson because I just feel like we took JT to put him with Spieth, and then the two of them went 0-3. Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate it. If that's the whole reason why we took JT, they go try it out there, go 0-3, and I think JT won a single match, so okay, fine.
He did. Yeah.
But
Spieth at that point, was the issue in that group. To be completely honest, yeah.
But then if you're going to bring JT to prop up Spieth, fine, because it's not, look, I get you're 100% right. Spieth was horrible. This whole Ryder Cup was terrible, like almost unwatchable bad. But you can't then not take the best player that you had to choose from to take JT to put him with Spieth if that's what I'm going to get from Spieth.
So, Ian, let me ask you a question that might get a hot take out of here, and it might rattle your cage a little bit. The Ryder Cup's once every 2 years. We're talking about how bad, literally over the last 10 minutes, how bad the American golf setup is. Does it actually matter? Because Americans won 3 of the 4 majors this year. I mean, from a major standpoint, Americans dominate professional golf.
Yeah, there's also more good American golfers than there are Europeans. Like, I don't get it. I mean, on paper, that's why we said that they should have dominated Europe, but they didn't.
But what I'm saying is both of us are frustrated with how, like, these guys can't play as a team. They can't play these formats. They can't do this. They can't do that. I'm asking you, I feel a certain way because I love the Ryder Cup. And when I'm going to put my hand up at fault. When the thing came out about Cantlay, I got really, really mad in a hurry because for me as a golfer, the Ryder Cup is the ultimate experience. And as an American, as a golfer, that would be the one thing in the world I would love to do and love to be a part of, right? But Europe's going around right now talking about how dominant Europe is over the Americans, especially on home soil.
As they should.
But if you look at events as a whole, Americans dominate the world of golf.
Yeah, but I mean, like, here's the way I look at it. I don't really give a you know what? If
I don't give a toot.
I don't give a rat's ass if Rory wins a major. I'm not like, oh dang, I wish the American would have won it. I don't do that. I like John Rahm. I like Rory. I like Hovland. These are good guys. Like, I don't root against them, and I don't go trotting around saying, "Oh, the Americans we won 4 majors this year. Let's go, America." Like, no, I judge Americans on you play in the Ryder Cup. You're supposed to beat them. Your roster's better. Like, to me, my biggest takeaway from this entire Ryder Cup is do away with the auto qualifier crap. Do away with all of it. Because if Cantlay really didn't want to be there, he shouldn't have had to be there. Then take someone else. If you don't want to be there, and again, this is all rumor, right? But if you are going to cause this divide, if there was one, allegedly, then okay, then just don't pick them. That's your choice. Europe just went and smacked us because they picked, guys that I hadn't even heard of. There were like 3 guys in that team. I was like, who is this guy? And I'm not like some guy who never watches golf.
They didn't smack us because of how Patrick Cantlay played. To be very clear, Patrick Cantlay went 2-2, and the 2 matches he lost were
I'm not attacking Patrick Cantlay. I'm just saying, but if you're going to cause a divide, it's like, Florida State, for you and I, right? Florida State in 2015, 2016 had no business, talent-wise, losing 63-17 to Louisville. That team was fractured. They didn't want to play for one another. That's why they got their ASSB, not because of talent. So your job as a captain should be to find the best collection of individuals to make the team better. And I think we just said, like what I'm saying, 1 through 12, you should beat them. Well, I feel like that's what every captain does for the Americans, which is dumb. Like, we need to come up with a better system to create the best possible team. And if that means we got to take, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of some scrub and mid-tier player, like Smiley Kaufman. We got to take Smiley Kaufman.
To your point, 2 of our automatic qualifiers were one Brian Harman, where Brian Harman had moments, right? I'm not going to take away from him too much, but the other was Wyndham Clark, and Wyndham Clark was useless.
He was horrific.
It was useless.
And look, you and I talked about this, and I will die on this hill. Anyone listening, Tucker knows where I'm going with this. You had a chance being spineless Zach Johnson to win automatically from the jump, win 4 points. And that was to put Patrick Cantlay and Brian Harman together in the last group so you don't slow any of your own teammates down. And let's go play in 8 hours. Let's slow this thing down. Let's aim point the whole course. Let's aim point the tee box. Let's aim point everything. Because we would have played in 6.5 hours. Pray to God you get paired up with Rahm or Rory, who would have lost their ever-loving mind if they had to play with those 2. And that's a guaranteed point. That's how you be a captain, spineless Zach Johnson. You take every one of those Europeans at some point complained about Brian Harman and Patrick Cantlay, whether it was in the FedEx Cup or whether it was at the Masters or at the Open, about how slow those 2 played. Pair their ASSs together, let them go out, play in 7 hours. Maybe you get a half because it's sunset and they didn't know how it could finish on 14. Exactly. That's better than what the hell you're trotting out right there, getting beat 9 and 8. That's a disgusting result. I'm just saying, if I were team captain, you would have had 4 points on the board. We would have hopped off the plane in Italy. It would have been 4 USA, Europe 0, and I wouldn't have had to do a damn thing. And then by the time we got to singles, I'd be smoking a cigar. I'd be sipping some wine, my feet up on 18, just golf. Good job, Europe. You played well. You gave it your best shot, but we just won like 17-9. But here we are, talking about a loss. Unreal.
Well, so guys, moving away from the Ryder Cup, we do have a action-packed episode for you all tonight. We're going to draft, speaking of the Ryder Cup, we're going to draft our top 3 golfers that we would want in a parking lot brawl going on with Mr. McElroy. We also have a new segment for Hambino. I think a lot of you will be excited about, especially now that we have video for this. But first, we're going to do a quick ad break, and this is a big read from one of a friends of our pod. So make sure you stay tuned for this.